Hi, I'm Pranamya and you're watching Pages of the Globe. So, if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Pranamya and I read short stories and poems and I give you a very good, deep analysis about them. And I tell you a little bit about the author and the historical context. And if you want more information, go ahead and check out the pinned video on my page. But without further ado, let's get on with the intro. Alright, so the story that I'm going to be reading today is actually not a story, it's a poem by Edgar Allan Poe called Alone. Now, before I start, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19th, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. He was actually orphaned at a very young age, and his father abandoned his family, and his mother died when he was just 3 years old. So he was then adopted by his parents in Richmond, Virginia. Now, as for his writing career, he is best known for his poetry and short stories, particularly his tales of mystery and macabre. He is considered a central figure in Romanticism in the United States and American literature as a whole. Some of his most major or most famous works that you might have actually heard of include works like the poem The Raven, which I've actually read on this channel before, and short stories such as The Telltale Heart, The Fall of the House of Usher, The Mask of the Red Death, The Black Cat, and The Cask of Amontillado. Now, plenty of his short stories I have read on this channel, and I actually have an entire playlist of all of his poems, so please go check those out if you like any of Poe's work. Now, as for his innovations, Poe is actually credited with pioneering the detective fiction genre with his story The Murders in the Rue Morgue. He also contributed to the emerging scene, or the emerging genre, of science fiction. Now, as for his personal life and struggles, he actually married his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia Clem, in 1836. Their relationship was marked by tragedy as Virginia suffered from tuberculosis and died very quickly, or not very quickly, but in 1847. So they only spent like about 11 years together. Now, Poe struggled with depression, alcoholism, and financial instability throughout his life. He died in 1849 under mysterious circumstances. He was found delirious on the streets of Baltimore and spent his last days in a hospital. The exact cause of his death remains unknown, with theories ranging from alcoholism to rabies to other illnesses. As for his legacy, Poe's work has had a lasting impact on literature and pop culture. He is celebrated for his inventive and chilling stories, as well as his mastery of the Gothic genre. The Edgar Awards are actually named after him and presented annually by the Mystery Writers of America to honor outstanding contributions to the mystery genre. Now, the poem I'm actually going to be reading today is called Alone by Edgar Allan Poe, and it is it's a beautiful poem, and I think if you enjoy really gut-wrenching poems like I do, you will seriously enjoy this one. Without further ado, let's get on with the story. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like me to read next. Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source, I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life was drawn. From every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky, as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of the heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. The end. Alright, so that was Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. Now, before I jump straight into analysis, I'm just going to give you a quick summary of exactly what happens. Well, first of all, Edgar Allan Poe wrote Alone in 1829, shortly after the death of his foster mother, Frances Allan. The poem was not titled or even published in Poe's lifetime, but was actually discovered after his death and published posthumously in 1875. Now, in this autobiographical poem, a speaker just describes his lifelong feelings of loneliness, isolation, and difference. He has this intense imaginative life that he writes about, and how it's a curse, forever setting him apart from other people. But at the same time, it's also a blessing because it's the source of his visionary power. Now, what is a summary? Well, he talks about how ever since he was a child, he was not like other people. He never saw the things other people saw them, and he could never get excited about the same things other people could. He couldn't be sad for the same reasons, and he could never be happy for the reasons others could. Everything that he loved by himself. And even since he was younger, he realized that, for better or for worse, this mysterious force which still has a hold on him. Now, that mystery came to him from the waterfalls or springs of some sort of like mountainside, the Red Rock mountainside. And he just kind of is describing these beautiful places that the mystery came to him from. So the golden fall of the sun and the lightning that shot past him through the sky from the thunderstorms and the cloud. And then they all took the shape of a devil in his eyes. Now, what are some themes that we see? Well, we see that the speaker of Alone has always felt quite different from those around him. It's not just that he has different tastes or beliefs than most. He genuinely seems to live in a totally different world, in which he experiences things much more intensely than most people. And while that sense of being different feels like a burden to the speaker, it's also a source of identity, vision, and inspiration. To the speaker, being alone is both a blessing and a curse. It's part of his very nature, making him who he is. From earliest childhood, the speaker has felt out of step with the people around him. His passions didn't come from a quote-unquote common spring, and his sorrows didn't come from the same source as other people's. Similarly, he could not awaken his heart to joy in the same way that others could. It's not that he didn't experience these emotions at all. Rather, he was just into different things than those around him, and this difference kept him from fitting in. While other people shared these emotions, he experienced everything in solitude. The things that have set the speaker apart throughout his life aren't only to do with his likes and dislikes, but with the way that he actually sees the world. The speaker says that as far back as he can remember, he didn't see as others saw. Instead, he perceived a deep, haunting mystery in the everyday world, seeing demons in clouds and strange power in the landscape. To him, the world has always felt magical and menacing. Nothing is ordinary in his eyes, because other people can't share these visions, and he ends up living all alone in a private world of the imagination. Now, both of the speaker's tastes and his perceptions mean that he is eternally and profoundly alone. But while this fate is painful, it also has its own reward. The mysterious force that makes the speaker see and feel things differently from those around him bind him. In other words, he feels trapped by his perceptions. At times, he might even feel that he's living in his own personal hell. The cloudy demon that we see towards the end of the poem, that could very well just be that he sees a clear blue sky and suggests that maybe his private world is just much more dangerous and threatening than the everyday world of the people around him. But there is something exalted about his aloneness, too. The very things that isolate the speaker also make him special. He seems to recognize this complicated beauty of his lonely fate, saying that his way of seeing the world was drawn from every depth and good and ill. In other words, for better or for worse, his isolation is part of being in contact with the extreme and mysterious depths of his own soul, the very depths which you need to plumb to be a poet. Now, something that I want to just discuss is how can we even compare this to the real world? How does this come into play here? Now, obviously, you can basically just take everything this poem says and then apply it to yourself. However, I wanted to talk about something a little bit more different that is still related to this poem, but it's just kind of cool, in my opinion. But if you have ever heard of shifting, if you maybe you have on like social media, or maybe you've read a couple articles, or maybe even studies about it. But shifting is basically, or I guess the full form of it would be reality shifting, is just this thing that a lot of specifically younger kids are doing these days, or just a few, which is basically where they are exploring different realities in this sort of immersive way, even like fictitious ones like Harry Potter and the Marvel series, that you might only have seen in books and movies. These kinds of worlds, they basically try and they put themselves in almost like a sort of trance or something, and then they shift into that reality. They create their own world. They might base it off a fictitious one. They create their own script. They create whatever they want, and then they actually shift into it. Now, reality shifting, which is the practice of shifting your subconscious to an alternative reality, is largely based on the multiverse theory. The reality that you decide to shift to is your desired reality, and it can be as realistic or as fictitious as you want. Now, apparently it requires some preparation, including things like writing a script, meditating, visualizing, or listening to subliminals. Now, this is a concept that has gained a lot of popularity specifically on TikTok. The person doing the shifting moves their subconscious from their current reality, which stands for CR, to their desired reality, DR, through a mix of visualization, affirmation, and meditation. This desired reality can be anything a person wants, including fictional worlds like the Harry Potter universe. Now, the thing is that a lot of scientists and a lot of people in generally just believe that this isn't a real thing, and I myself am one of them. There's been no study that's came out that says it's an actual real thing, and there's plenty of people on TikTok that a few years after they share their shifting journey, because shift talk is a huge thing. It's like thousands of people trying to shift, and so very popular shift talk creators that were very major in like 2020 are coming back up now and saying that, hey, by the way, we were lying about all that, we were just bored. And a lot of them talk about how it's really just maladaptive daydreaming, and it's not really a real thing. And I think that's so interesting, because on Shift Talk, I will see people do, like, I've never honestly myself like shifted or anything, because again, I don't really believe in it. However, I am a huge, I read a lot, right? So I'm constantly seeing TikToks and stuff that have to do with the Percy Jackson series or the Harry Potter series or literally anything. And so oftentimes I would actually see these TikToks that had to do where people would share what happens in their reality and what they put in their script. And I genuinely would not understand. I'd be so confused. I'd be like, where is this even coming from? Like, this did not happen in the book. I remember at one point, I searched through the entire book, the entire series of Harry Potter, trying to find one character that everyone kept saying that they had in their, I guess, reality. And then I realized what shifting actually was. And I was like, there's no way this is real. And apparently, it's not. However, it very much reminds me of this poem, because I'll see people talk about their, shifting experiences, and they'll talk about how much they genuinely enjoy it, and how their best friends, their love, the true love of their lives, they're all in that reality. They're in their desired reality, and how much they genuinely love it. At the same time, though, they can't ever properly connect with other people, because according to them, they are sometimes brought back to reality, and then they have to go back to doing what they were doing before. Now, I find this so very interesting, because it reminds me of this poem in the way that it's a curse and a blessing, being able to convince yourself that you are traveling to a different reality. Now, if you are confused as to what maladaptive daydreaming is, which a lot of people think is what shifting actually is, maladaptive daydreaming is an unhealthy or negative attempt to cope with or adapt to a problem. So people who do this tend to kind of lose themselves in this extremely vivid and detailed daydreams, which is basically exactly how people shift, quote unquote shift, or reality shift. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was a cool thing. If you know anything about shifting, please comment it down below. But yeah, that's it for today. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like me to read next.